Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Pope Metallicus, and welcome back to Rock and Roll Religion. A fun episode. Not necessarily a band I am a huge fan of, but at their peak is an absolute monster. And musically they're great, and this is why people love them, and myself included. But business side get really horrible, which is also why we don't have any graphics, because apparently whoever owns the copyright of this is an absolute horrible bastard that won't even let me put up graphics of the early stuff or album covers. But anyway, here to help me talk about it are two other people who have owned these records and have spun them recently. We have the Sentinel, as always.
Hell, what's
I
up?
think you're on mute there, man.
Am I on mute?
Nope, you're good now.
Okay. Yeah. So early Pantera, later Pantera. I'm familiar with later Pantera than I am with early Pantera, but I definitely know enough about the earlier records so I can at least talk about them with you for sure and
Well, I
give
mean,
some
I
insight.
love the first three records,
Yeah.
but at the same time, like, you're not even allowed to, you can't even buy them over the counter anymore.
You
It's
can't
almost like
even
these
buy them
records
on
exist
eBay
in
anymore.
a hole in time.
You can't even buy them on eBay anymore. eBay sell. They're going after
Well,
the eBay
I
sellers.
that's how I got them.
Okay, that's how I got them too.
It was
I
physically is I bought the CDs on eBay, but when it comes to actual, you can't even. These albums aren't even listed as part of Pantera's discography on Spotify. That's how hard they've tried to erase these records. But anyway, we have another special guest for us to help us
who I
uh,
haven't met, by the way. Uh, First time meeting him.
truly excoriate this phenomenon. But it's the first time on the stream, so please give a welcome to Heath Nation.
What's
Dale,
going on, guys?
nice to
What's
meet you,
going
Heath
on?
Nation.
Nice to
How's
meet
it
you
going,
too, there,
man?
Sentinel. Not much, man. Just laid back. Here to talk about some heavy metal.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Oh
Right on.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and Soul Assassin's right. The Abbots actually own the rights to all of this music,
Mm-hmm.
and apparently they like the '90s stuff far better than anything that came before it. That were, the reasons they were still a band in 1990. Um, I'll go ahead and say it. The first few two records, Metal Magic has its points. It's actually not a terrible record.
Yeah, I don't understand when I was looking back at it and they had like negative reviews, I'm like, I mean, the first two songs are bangers. It can't really be that bad, you know?
No, it's actually not a bad record. Like, I don't understand why everyone tries to run from this, unless we
Yeah.
just have shitty taste.
Yeah.
But it's metal as fuck. Like, it's a good speed metal record from 1985.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem as I see it. It's all about perspective, and it's strictly the problem of Dimebag and Vinny
End of the state.
and the rest of them, because let's say you go and make a fan film in high school that you look back on and it's terribly, terribly like, oh my god, I'm so embarrassed. I wish I didn't wear this. I didn't like this take I did. I wish, you know, yada 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 yada. And you
So
kind
you
of
mean like my first 20 videos that I ever put on YouTube?
yeah, something like
Same,
exactly.
dude.
Exactly. It could be something like that. And then all of a sudden, like you get really good at what you do and you're really proud of what you've done. But for some strange phenomenon, the internet starts bringing up this old fan film that you did as so much better than some of your later records. And you're like, what? No, I don't count this. What are you guys doing? You're not supposed to like this. And it's like it's not up to you, guy. It's your fans happen to find it and they love it. So why are you now having such a hard
But
psychological
apparently,
time
like,
embracing
they
this
want
phenomenon?
to take away those albums
It
from the actual
doesn't.
people who liked them.
It
It
doesn't
really doesn't.
exactly.
It makes zero fucking sense. Like we love those records. Like I owned all 4 of them. And you know what? Power metal is one of the best heavy metal records of the 1980s.
Power Metal and Cowboys from Hell are the 2 best Pantera records in my opinion.
100% agreed. And that's because, like, let's face it, power metal is not a Pantera. Well, I mean, it is a pure Pantera record in that it's about the music, not about how many albums they're gonna fucking sell.
Yeah. That's the big thing with rock, like heavy metal. Well, not just heavy metal, but rock back in the day. It was all just about the glory of the music. Like we weren't like trying to sell tracks for like wolf purchases, you know? Like this was music basically.
Like, this is how rock and roll does things. Is we don't give a fuck about album sales. We give like the people who buy the music,
Who buy the
are
merch,
the
who go to the
audience.
shows.
Yeah,
That's
Yep.
who we
go to the
love.
shows, are the audience. I mean, let's face it. Let's face it, boys. We've all been to rock shows. Like we are the audience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like we are the guys you were trying to sell a record to. And I will, and Soul Assassin, I will. The pre-Phil Phil Anselmo era stuff is kind of weak, but that's also because its production is so bad that
Yeah.
you really can't even get into the music itself.
Yeah, it's just weird. It was
Yeah,
weird.
I mean, it has potential. A lot of the pre-Phil Anselmo stuff, like the first 2 records, musically, it's actually got potential. And I would love to see what somebody does with it. But Metal Magic itself, like, it's pretty cringeworthy.
Now was the first Phil record was Power Metal, right?
It was power metal, yep.
Okay.
Which is where I think real Pantera starts.
It really does.
Yeah, it's kind of like I think power metal is like the moment where you are basically hinted at the deeper, darker version of Pantera that you would see in the 90s because of the inclusion of Phil.
The bigger sound too, the bigger more bombastic kind
Yes.
of shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you get treated to that, late 80s power metal, not power metal. Well, I mean, it is power metal, the album, literally. But you get that speed and thrash metal sound coming through the speakers. And it's really cool to see how Pantera kind of owned their or evolved their early sound into power metal. But Phil Anselmo basically just crushes it on vocals.
For sure.
One of the best voices I think I've ever heard.
That's one of the most frustrating things about Phil Anselmo is he has such a great high voice, and he refuses to use it.
I don't think even if he still has it,
He does. I've
he
seen him.
still has it. He still has
Yeah,
that beautiful
I've seen him say it. Like he still has that side of his voice. He just refuses to fucking use it, which makes me all sorts of mad.
I think that's part of the '90s. I think that's part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of that. I can't believe I wore those pants back in the day. I can't believe I used hair gel.
I can't believe I grew up in the '90s.
Yeah, I can't believe I grew up. It's like that '90s embarrassment. It's that '90s embarrassment. It's a cultural thing. It really is a cultural thing. It's the same kind of attitude that grunge brought along with it.
There's a reason a lot of people are embarrassed about the '90s because it was not a great time in most people's
lives. Great time to grow up. Not a great time.
Great time to grow up.
Great time to grow up. Not a great time for music in general.
I will, second that statement. I grew up in the '90s. For those of you keeping score at home, born in 1987. So we got to see the end of the Soviet Union, and then I'm known for rooting for lost causes. I've been a Red Sox fan my entire life. Hey, lifelong Bostonian. Just moved to the, but oh god damn it. I rock and roll is always one of those like lost causes that you always want to succeed, and when you see somebody like really break out, it's hard to be mad at them for it. Like Pantera made it from, being a metal phenomenon to an actual pop culture phenomenon.
Yes.
Like these songs, and it's only on 2 records, but these guys broke through the
glass ceiling when it came to pop culture.
They broke out of the glass envelope essentially and into the mainstream pop mindset, which is fucking insane.
Was
a rock band in the 1990s
with songs like "Walk" and songs like 5 Minutes Alone, to the point,
or even the purely just metallic Cemetery Gates.
Oh, yeah, dude, I listened to that the other day. There's that song. If it's just such a beautiful song too. The way they composed it,
they're one of those bands that I'm like, why does everyone care about Pantera? And then I'll spin up something like Cemetery Gates or something like that. I'm like, oh yeah, that's why.
That's why I keep saying my brother and I always have this debate going back and forth, which is better, Cowboy, which is their best album, and I keep saying it's Cowboys. He keeps saying it's Vulgar because everybody associates Pantera with Vulgar.
There's songs on both records that can be, the best of all time.
That's true. Yes. But what my argument always goes back to, this is the point where from Vulgar onward is the point where Pantera starts to really clip their wings creatively. Yep. To the point where
they went full on thrash metal, which is fine, but they didn't go
but they lost
overkill style thrash metal. They went popular thrash metal. They went 90s Anthrax. Right.
Yeah, that's the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it's just come on, don't cuck yourselves like that. Be a metal band.
Mm-hmm.
And that's weird to say because I think Reinventing the Steel is one of the best swan songs you could ever possibly put out. It sounds it sounds way, 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 way heavier than any of the the new metal production from 98 to 2003 ever could possibly. It's still a heavy metal album. It's still composed as a heavy metal album. It's got groove. It's got hooks. It's got their Texas kind of swing to it.
Well, it's actually composed and actually has a musical theme to it, which is kind of a hallmark of pre MTV era Pantera. And Soul just said it. Yeah,
Hmm.
man, you're not wrong about
Mhm.
that. Like, that's the only reason most people will even talk about Pantera is because of MTV. They would have been another niche band with no real audience if it wasn't for, I think it was Walk getting picked up by NTV.
Oh yeah.
Like, they would be a nothing band. And that's not me shitting on them. Like, that's just the facts of the matter. Is heavy metal in the 1990s was, kind of a passe thing.
It was
Like,
terrible.
yeah, and
And
like
I can
everyone
only
was
give
trying to distance themselves from the metal scene as much as they could.
and I can only give my experiences from the little I remember coming into my fanhood of heavy metal around around my early teenage years, and this is like right at the end of the 90s or early 00s.
Mm-hmm.
Heavy metal in its purest form. Like if you were to think of like the Judas Priest versions, of heavy metal, or the 80s Metallica versions of heavy metal, was one of the
So,
most
actual heavy metal.
actual heavy metal was one of the most like uh just it wasn't it was like what the people thought of it as like what the fuck are you doing, that's so old, that's so passe, that's so it's they looked at heavy metal. Okay, here's a good way to look at it. Heavy metal in the 90s, the way people reacted to you playing that and embracing that sound in the late 90s early 00s, if you didn't have a hip hop scratcher to your song, it looked like you were wearing bell bottoms. It would look like
Yep.
actually like you were wearing bell bottoms,
Yeah.
like you're from a fucking different decade. They were
And
thinking, "What
and
the hell
and
is the matter with
the
you?"
funny part is, like, everyone loved to shit on the people in bell bottoms. And the funny part is, as metalheads, we can recognize that 70s hard rock and heavy metal were kind of the same thing
Hmm.
Yes.
and kind of came from the same place as a reaction to the hippie movement.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And the funny part is, they're gone. Like, they got, or the hippies got absorbed into, the yuppie movement in the 80s and, the modern left.
Yeah, I would say the hippies became the yuppies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
True.
we're still here because we still fucking believe in the things we talk about.
We still believe in the original concepts of rock and heavy metal,
Hmm.
basically. The various
We still
concepts, just
believe in rock and roll.
yeah, just the straight up natural like instruments and just balls to the wall action that will raise your heartbeat.
Exactly.
That
Hmm.
was the basis of rock and roll.
And that's
And
why
as
bands like Motorhead are so popular, is because that's literally what they did for 40 fucking years.
and it was just consistent and it
Yep.
still garnered a lot of attention.
They were Hellraisers and Heartbreakers.
Yep. That was the basic yeah, I remember someone on Joe Rogan talked about that. The Hellraisers and the Heartbreakers.
Yeah, like,
Like
that's
that if
what
you
rock and roll should be, always.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a lost art, and the cultural meta in the 90s, it was shifting a lot. People can deny it all they want, but like the cultural meta back then was like a massive shift.
It
Oh, yeah.
was.
And it seems like these bands were trying to get with the times, but the times rejected them because of the originality of their
Well, I mean, me and Sentinel have talked
ordinance.
about it with the Ramones, with punk. Like, punk
Yes.
sold out. Like,
Oh, massively.
we've had bands,
Massive.
like, don't get me wrong, in the metal genre, we've had bands that sold out.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
punk as a genre sold out to the man.
Yep.
Now
To
every
the point where,
punk.
like, you'll hear, like, Rage Against the Machine and stuff like that, which I've never been a fan of. I've always
They've-
loved those bands.
Never been a
They
fan
only
of them.
had like one song that I actually liked. That was it. Other than that, I could care less about that band.
Honestly, POD did everything they did better.
Yeah,
Oh,
Um,
yeah, there you go. Now you're talking.
and they get pigeonholed because they're a Christian. They're more of a they identify as a Christian.
And the
rock
funny
band.
thing is, this is coming from someone who's not a fucking Christian. Like, I'm an atheist. I will always be an atheist. And yet POD is better than Rage Against the Machine. Purely. Like, the only good thing that Rage Against the Machine had was Tom Morello on guitar.
Hmm.
And I will say I respect the man heavily as a thrash metal guitarist. His politics are shit, but, you know, at least he
Yeah.
has that.
Well, and also, remember what we were talking? We were talking about, like, Christian rock right before Sentinel came on. We were
Yep.
talking about Nickelback and how Nickelback got a lot of hate, not just because that they were a Christian band, but because they were discovered by Metallica. Ideally, when you get discovered by Metallica, you should translate to who, like, found you in the first place, but they didn't.
Which
That's
is
why they got a lot
hilarious
of hate.
considering another band that was found by Metallica
Mhm.
being Ghost.
Oh yeah, we did talk about Ghost, didn't we?
Yeah. Me and you know, for those of you who are, you know, been around a while, me and Amber actually did a talk about Ghost when they came out with their new record.
I actually did
and
see that.
It's fucking phenomenal. And I think Ghost just keeps getting better because
Absolutely.
they know what Ghost should be. Like, that's the thing is, like, a band should know what it is above all else.
It's like my dad always says, you got to find the niche that works for you. And
Yeah,
a lot of
exactly.
these,
It's like, it doesn't matter if you're the best band in your genre, whatever. Who gives a
Mhm.
shit? Like, there have been a lot of best, you know, thrash metal bands that have just gone by the wayside, and 2 albums later, nobody knows who they are.
Mhm. It's like James Earl Jones said in The Field of Dreams, you build it and people will come. Doesn't matter what.
If you have a solid structure
Yes.
musically and just fun wise, like being done, and I think a lot of it is bands forget where they came from over the years.
Oh yeah, people forget their the moment that you forget your origins, doesn't matter if you're into music, if you're a content creator, whatever,
Mhm.
you are doomed to fail at that point because you have forgotten everything that has gotten you past square one. And I
Yep.
think that's what a lot of these bands in the 90s, like Pantera, when they started, they were still making good music, but they were still declining as a whole because they had forgotten about what got them to the dance in the first place.
And don't get me wrong, you know, Cowboys from Hell and Vulgar Display of Power are fucking phenomenal albums.
Hmm.
Like,
But you can tell that things are getting more kind of just kind of there's a loss of something in
yeah,
Far Beyond and then
you
Great
can
Southern
tell from
Trendkill.
power metal even to Cowboys from Hell, there's a loss in the sound. I don't know what it is, but they can't replace it, and they never do.
The it factor, basically.
Yeah,
That's basically what affected
we're playing the
Metallica.
music we want to play,
Hmm.
not the music that will make us popular.
Yeah, that's what I think. Sentinel, you just brought up a good point about Far Beyond Driven and the Great Southern Treadkill. Like, which song of that group was like actually like caught on? For me, it was only Tens. That was it. After that, I'm just sitting there listening. I'm like, okay, what the hell is going on here? You know?
I don't remember a single song from the Great Southern Trendkill I can name right now that I like and remember. The only song from Far Beyond Driven that I can name and I can say I like is 5 Minutes Alone. And a lot of that has to do with the live record, 101 Proof, or because I would play that endlessly. That was one of the first Pantera albums I actually bought. And it's still a very catchy song. So, but I don't know. creatively or what have you, there was definitely something that Pantera definitely wanted to keep just kind of isolating themselves
Yeah.
musically from. And I think the cultural shift was part of
They
that.
were
I
an
think
they were an
that
80s metal band that hated the fact that they were an 80s metal band, essentially.
Yeah. And the only reason I ever knew about Tens
Mhm.
from that album was because of the fact that it was featured in one of the greatest Dragon Ball Z movies ever made. That's how I knew. Other
Fair,
than that, you couldn't really
fair
like
point.
picture. You couldn't really tell me what else was on that album because that was just the one that stuck out. You know?
And Bush just hit this nail on the head when it comes to the mentality of '90s records.
Oh yeah. And there are stories out there about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
About people that have yeah, you're correct, Soul Assassin. It is the Broly movie.
Yeah.
We'll give you more money. Yeah, like, and it wasn't just in heavy metal that they were going through this. It was in rap, it was in pop, it was in all that stuff. But
Yeah.
that's like
If you
that's a whole
sell
other
out
can
to
of worms.
I mean, essentially, being metalheads, it came from the hippie movement in the '60s, when you're talking about quote unquote the man, like corporate or whatever. But it became a larger image than that. It became like it's essentially all of the things in society that are telling you to do things a certain way because this is what will make you popular, or this is what will make you money, or whatever.
Hmm.
And I think that marks a lot of respect for a lot of bands, is telling that entire line of people to go fuck themselves.
Yeah, that's another thing about heavy metal and like rock and roll in general. The basis of it was, telling establishment or telling like any of that,
Telling
like,
people what's popular or whatever to fuck off.
yeah, basically looking at structure and telling it to go fuck itself. And that was as money started getting filtered in, it basically metal in the 90s was no different than these TikTok clout chasers that you see today. I
Yep,
will
and
put it
that's
like
why,
that.
and Soul Assassin puts his finger on it right here, and this is why Metallica has never regained their respect.
Even with that what was that album? The Day That Never Comes? Like it had
Honestly,
good.
their newer one, Death Magnetic, they've got some old school thrash metal shit on there.
Death
Yes.
Magnetic. Here, can I just quickly give a quick soliloquy about Metallica? I would
Yep.
say that they will never be forgiven by their fans for multiple reasons. Especially their early fans, because the early fans are the fans that really
We
were
were the ones
uh,
that brought you to this fucking dance,
yeah.
Yeah.
essentially.
And then with the Black Album, they felt like that was betrayal. But let me just quickly just get through this. Death Magnetic and Hardwired to Self Destruct are two albums that have heavily helped Metallica smooth out the rough edges that have
I will say
affected
Hardwired
their
is
legacy. So
fucking
they've restored at
phenomenal
least some
record.
of their legacy going forward. They've restored a lot of some of their legacy.
I
But
mean,
as
it's
far
not
as
they're not thrash metal, but as a
no, they're
mainstream
not
rock
thrash
and
metal.
roll band,
Hmm.
As a rock and roll band,
Hardwired Self Destruct is fucking savage.
as a rock and roll band, as a heavy metal band, as a band that had a huge PR problems as a result of the backlash. Let's skip the Black Album. Forget the Black Album for a minute. As a result of that they were susceptible to the cultural shift of the '90s. They cut their hair. They started tuning down. They included all this additional genre music in Load and Reload.
Mhm.
They tried to do a hard reboot with Saint Anger. You had the whole Napster debacle. You had
Yeah,
some kind
Bruce
of
just pointed that
monster, and
out.
whether it's heavy metal or not, to have a performance coach and filming a documentary. It's one of the ballsiest documentaries ever released, by the way,
I
as
think
far
I've
as
seen
I'm
part of it.
concerned. You know, but as far as like fully regaining that rep, Not really. And you're
Not
not
really.
going to, because like Soul Assassin said, it's rarely forgiven by the fans. I don't think
It's very rarely
Metallica will
forgiven. Well, I
ever,
mean, it's almost never forgiven by the fans, and nor should it be.
nor should it be.
Really shouldn't.
So I think Metallica has gone a long way to at least helping to pave out some of the smooth edges. I mean, to help to pave some of that, kind of put some of those fires out. But as far as like totally forgetting, no, nobody's ever going to totally forget, you know, a lot of what happened because it was
Well,
embarrassing.
I
It
mean,
was, it was, see, Metallica painfully didn't want to be a band associated as an 80s hair band, but but ended up becoming the very thing they swore they had
A
never become in the
caricature.
90s.
well, I mean, me and Sentinel are both huge Judas Priest fans. Like,
Mhm.
we can't ignore the first record, though,
I know.
but we can acknowledge that that was a learning experience for the band.
Exactly.
You have to these days, man. You
But
got to
at the
get.
same time, we acknowledge that that was a thing, not try to erase it from the band's history. Like, yeah, they were kind of a generic rock and roll band at the start, and then they came out with Sad Wings of Destiny, and everything was fine
Yeah, you
after
got to
that.
start.
Like,
You
they
got to
fucked
start
up a
somewhere.
couple of times.
You have to start somewhere. And
Mhm.
if it sounds cheesy at first, then it sounds cheesy. Big freaking deal.
Yeah, it's like
People
you guys have obviously never heard me play guitar. Like, I've fucked up a lot of times before I actually figured out which end was up.
yeah, like people always this is kind of like a kind of divert like when gaming, for example, people always say,
Mhm.
"Well, why is the second game always better than the first?" The first game you're trying to figure out shit. The second game you've
And
perfected.
the first game, you're trying to figure out what the hell it is.
Yes.
And then the
Like the
second one, you're trying to figure out what tone it should take.
Yeah, the
Hmm.
first Mortal Kombat was shit. But then the second one came out and it's still one of the best games ever. It's the same thing with rock or music in general. The first one, you're trying to figure out what you're trying to do. The second one, you've perfected everything, and now it becomes second nature. It becomes a
Yeah.
sixth sense. So I just don't understand why bands just get so embarrassed about, their first or second or third albums. It's
And
not going to be
because
perfect the
especially
first
because
time.
that's some of your most authentic content. Don't shy away from being from your early content because mm, like that's your most authentic shit you're ever going to get. Like,
Mhm.
especially
Absolutely.
like as a band, like your first album is the one you don't give a fuck about. You're just out there to literally make music because it's what you want to do.
Like I said, just throwing light bulbs into a void to see
Yep.
which one just lights up.
Yeah, you're just throwing light. You're just throwing lightning into the dark, and then you find out if anyone actually cares. And that's why "Kill 'Em All" to this day is one of Metallica's best records. It was because of their attitude, not because of their actual, you know, talent, which came later.
I
But
love the way those songs are still arranged and composed.
oh no, it was a great fucking record,
But you're
and it
right.
was
A lot
a
of the attitude is
musical
on that
statement.
record.
It was a musical statement.
It was like a musical declaration of independence, pretty much.
Yeah, essentially, or you're just kind of in the aftermath of it. Um, well, I mean, it becomes like really clear when you explain it like this, Heath. Um, there is pre and post Venom Metallica.
Yes. Yes. There you go.
Like there was the early Metallica that would openly be photographed with with Venom shirts on themselves
Mm-hmm.
at pretty much any and all times. And they were borderline black metal.
Oh man, were they?
Yep.
And then they kind of started careerizing themselves, shall we say.
Commercializing, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that or if it's they're so fucking neurotic about their own self-image that it's like a centipede. If one limb fails, all of them fail, and then they forget how to walk.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong.
Mm-hmm. It that could explain why there was just so much
Because
drama
early
in that
Metallica
band.
was just fucking phenomenal. And then they started trying to sell out.
Yeah. Freaking Boosh in the chat.
Oh no.
Shit. But yeah, a lot of that drama, like I know Metallica had a lot of drama going on in there, and like it just a lot of that kind of spills over because I think it's creative differences.
The worst part with a lot of Metallica's drama is because they were forging an entire new genre of music.
Mm-hmm. And they just
and people didn't know how to respond to it.
And then that caused a lot of infighting amongst the members. Like, wait a minute now. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
And you could say the same thing with Pantera when it came to the whole drama involving Phil as well. Because he had a lot of drama.
So it wasn't just all Phil.
It was, well,
and guess what, kids? Phil Anselmo can actually sing quite well.
Yes.
He just refuses to, which is one of the reasons I want to punch him in the dick.
Well, didn't Dimebag Darrell also have a huge issue with that too?
Yeah, Dimebag can sing too.
Listen to power metal, and then listen to what came after it.
Mm-hmm.
The man can sing. He has a set of pipes, and then he refuses to.
It's weird, man. It was weird. It was like the whole transition just kind of killed the genre in general. And Pantera was kind of like at the crucible of all of it when it went down.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. For those two albums, Vulgar Display of Power and Cowboys from Hell, they gained a fan base that will last the ages. But a lot of them were from the previous era, which is, derided as Glamterra.
Yeah, I've heard that word a lot. Like their glam years.
They were actually a good band. Like, let's face it, like a lot of their early records were fun. I think people forgot that, even hard rock is supposed to be for fun.
Yeah. It's supposed to be the perfect getaway,
Exactly. We're playing music for funsies.
Mm-hmm. We're here so we can raise your heartbeat, so you can, just say, look at society itself and say, fuck you for about 2 to 3 hours. We're going to go see this shit live.
Yeah.
And we're going to have mosh pits.
We're going to go throw each other around for a couple of hours.
Yeah, we're going to have big mosh pits. We're going to fling our fists up and down, left and right, all around. Who cares?
You know what? We're going to make new friends at the end of it. I've met people that have become really good friends.
Can I answer Soul Assassin's question?
What's up?
I was looking at that too.
Can I answer Soul Assassin's question? Because I've got a pretty good take on that. Soul Assassin. I think Pantera came too late after to be associated as part of the Big Four of thrash.
Yes.
And I don't think Pantera is a thrash band. To be honest,
they try to be.
And if you really want to know who should have been part of the Big Four, Anthrax, get the fuck off the stage, bro. You have no right to be there. Testament, should have been in your spot, bro. You
Don't get me
sold
wrong,
out
I like
to
a
the hip
lot of
hop.
I like a lot of Anthrax stuff, but you're absolutely right. Testament belongs on that
Testament
day in
deserves
no
that
place.
spot. Anthrax, you're a bunch of frauds. You constantly chased fucking trends. You were you were one of the first ones to do the hip hop shit with. So, fuck off with this pure. I'm one of the big four of thrash shit. The best thrash album
Although
that Anthrax has ever put out
did
is
create one of
"Spreading the Disease,"
the best.
and they never ever fucking play any of those songs live.
Although you know, 80s Anthrax did create one of the greatest songs of all time in "I Am the Law."
They always play that live.
Yeah, because it fucking rules.
I know. My issue with Anthrax is, especially when I saw them, and even today, they I don't think they deserve the accolade of the Big Four. I just don't.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And
I think their first
there's
three
a reason
records
we haven't
are
covered
are
Anthrax
still
at all
untouched.
on this channel yet.
I think their
We will
first three
get there.
records are still untouched by anything else that they've done, even if they've gone back and rehired Joey Belladonna and brought back in that we re-identify as a thrash band kind of thing. It's like they detransition from like a 90s.
And I will say that some of their early shit, especially
Fistful of Metal.
Fistful of Metal and shit like that, like as a guitar player, holy shit, is it
It's
fun.
great.
It's fucking hilarious. It's also really fun to play because it's easy and it sounds badass. Like that's kind of where we're at. Is
This should actually be more of a stream on the kind of like the many self-identity and heavy metal. How can it get past its own neurotics kind of thing? Because that's what it is.
This is kind of why heavy metal has outlasted even rock and roll, essentially. Is we are the real spirit of rock and roll. We don't give a fuck what the cultural zeitgeist is. We're just playing fun music.
Yep. We're discovering new things without any kind of corporate, shilling or any type of trend like holding us back.
Even when it comes to music nerds, like, don't get me wrong, I love musicians to death. But you know what? Every now and again, you guys need to take a step back and realize that, I'm an asshole playing with a guitar. Sometimes I make fun noises. That's about how, intellectual I get with it. Is I played something and it sounded fun. It sounded fun, so I thought I'd show my friends.
Radical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's legit where rock and roll came from. It's sped up blues. And you know what? That's amazing. It kind of came out of nowhere and took not only an entire country for a period, but took an entire world by storm for 30 years.
It changed the way that we look at music
the way
as a
people
whole.
think.
Yeah. It changed what we think of music as a whole, It's not just about creating the best jam. It's more or less it's like how far can we push the envelope when it comes to creating a sick tune,
Right? And it's kind of the Assassin's Creed mindset of everything is permitted.
You know what I think of when I think of other music, and then I separate it with rock and roll? I can listen to other music and listen to it for a purely musical aesthetic and appreciate it from a musical standpoint.
Yeah.
I listen to rock and roll for fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Rock and roll outlasts because it's fun. It's unpretentious. It's simple. It's fun.
And you
Fun.
know what?
Fun.
It's kind of musically what we're doing on YouTube or whatever. Is we're just a bunch of assholes having fun telling jokes and just doing what we want to do.
Yeah.
It's
And
also
and then posting that to the world, essentially.
yeah. And here's the thing with Pantera, with a lot of their early stuff, it's like,
They're embarrassed
it
by
was,
it, and I don't know why.
yeah, and like, well, here's the thing too. It's like they had like the best formula. You go into, the music, and now you're at the point of unpredictability because it's like, oh crap, what kind of riff is Dimebag Darrell going to be doing on that guitar? Basically, it was the amount of uncertainty in the amount of unpredictability that made like that kind of metal just fun,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons that jazz was fun,
Yes.
and it's one of the reasons rock and roll is fun because you have a six-string instrument or a drum kit. Like, what are you going to do with it?
Mm-hmm.
And rock and roll is kind of just playing blues riffs at double speed just
Yes.
because you can.
Yeah.
Like, blues is the fundament of jazz, rock and roll, hard rock, and heavy metal. Like, they are.
It's the intersection of all those different genres.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's all blues. It's all blues all the way down. Which is why everyone loves and venerates blues guitarists, because they are goddamn masters of the instrument.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can throw a six string into my hip and probably make a song that you're gonna like. These motherfuckers could make a career out of doing that. And also change how music is played. Like, look at guys like Eric Clapton.
Oh
Mhm.
man, Eric Clapton.
The man just understands the instrument differently than the rest of us.
Peter Frampton was kind of the same way.
Peter Frampton, I can't argue with that.
Yeah. He kind of had the same thing going like Eric Clapton. They just had two different ways of going about it that all
Yep.
came back to the middle at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, and when you look at it, what Peter Frampton's ideal of rock and roll was kind of Cheap Trick.
Yeah. That basic idea.
Of fuck it, we're just gonna do what we want.
Yeah.
Oh,
We're just going to throw everything to the wall. Whichever one sticks, we're going to use it.
yeah.
And we're just going to put our notes right here. And if anyone can add on to it, you can. If you can't, well, tough shit.
And
Can we
I
highlight?
this is a metal documentarian essentially, and a musician myself. Heavy metal was the guys that were like the edge lords that like took that way too seriously
Yeah.
and ended up kind of creating a counterculture to the musical zeitgeist of the day,
Mm-hmm.
which is insane, but it works.
And there was another time like that in the 70s, when people do you remember, I know this is, I kind of got off topic, but do you remember the whole thing with like disco and pop, for example?
Yep.
Basically, the whole thing with rock and roll and heavy metal, it was the same concept as the whole thing with disco and pop.
And here's a fun part for me to admit as a metalhead. You know what? There's some really great 80s pop stuff.
Yes, there was.
Mm-hmm.
I
Every
mean,
once in
Michael
a while.
Jackson's fucking amazing. So is Prince.
Yeah, every once in a while you'd have that one person that would just come out of nowhere and just produce like an all-time classic. And that kind of spilled over into heavy metal, where you would just get either you would get the one band that was slowly starting off, much like
Mhm.
Pantera, or you'd get the one that would just make a hit and then they're off to the races, like Metallica.
Oh, I would
Well,
say more like
that
GNR. When I think of that, when I think of a band coming out and just putting out a great album and just going off to the races, Guns N' Roses is like the first band I
Yes.
think of.
I mean,
Yeah.
we've covered that on Metallica's episodes, but which we did, I think, 2 of. But musically, it is like you say, Heath, like a reaction
Yes.
where a lot of it is, hey, this shit's popular, but I fucking hate it.
So how can we amplify it so many times that time stops? Oh, I know.
It's literally, how can we like freeze this in a bottle so I can make fun of it?
Yeah. Just take this lightning in a bottle and how can we add more electricity to it to the point where it just blows up the whole freaking room, you know? That was the core concept of heavy metal. And the formula Boosh. That's pretty funny.
He's saying that because I'm a New Englander.
I figured it had something to do with that.
I'm not laughing. I'm trying to figure out what line that's from. Is that from a movie? Park It Yourself, Metallica Breath?
Well, I mean, no, it's not from a movie. It's
okay.
From what I'm about to say, and Boosh, goddamn you. You actually made me say it on stream. Pocket Khan Harvard Yard.
I thought it was from a fucking movie.
And the funniest part is,
it was from a movie.
you
Thank
can't
you.
pocket car in Harvard Yard, because if you do, you're gonna get a fucking ticket. Oh, and then bands are gonna make songs about it for the next 15 goddamn years. Oh,
So I would say the bottom line, I would say, don't ignore the past. Don't try to shut a door on it.
no, exactly.
No,
Just leave it.
Embrace it. Like,
just
yeah,
embrace
it.
it.
Cool shit that we were doing, and it was fun. But
You don't have to embrace it. You don't have to highlight it. But don't. You don't have to highlight it. But you don't have to pretend it never existed in the first place.
Yeah.
You know. And especially if you've got like fans starting to say, "Hey, listen, we love this old shit." I mean, here's the thing: Dimebag has another half of his career.
First half of your career.
The first half of his career, it will always be pigeonholed memory-wise by
it's also the one they own outright.
It's also the one they own outright.
They actually own the rights.
They own outright. So he's essentially limiting people seeing possibly another half of the genius he brought to the guitar.
Yeah, and it's just sad because
the back half of the record is essentially them and also whatever label they're using Pantera as a sock puppet.
Yeah, to make them more money, basically, off merchandise and all that. Like, that's what that was the attitude that became the norm in the 90s, you know? And it was just, like, here's my thing.
Boosh just put up a thing I have to read in my own accent because it's fucking amazing.
Let's hear it.
You gonna rob a Star Market for that roll of quarters?
God damn.
And that's not an
Oh shit. Oh god. All right, Sentinel, we're gonna have to take over this podcast
All
now.
right. Well, yeah. We'll see what. Let me.
Oh, here we go. He's
There he
back.
is.
We're back.
He's back.
We're back. I only pressed the button wrong once. And yes, I did yeet myself out of the stream. That's fucking
God.
amazing when the host yeets himself.
Mhm.
Oh,
But to go back to this point about Pantera and their past, it's like another reason why you don't want to reject your past, because you never know. You might want to go back to the tunes that made you a band in the first place,
Yes.
and you might want to bring them back out, and they might be more popular than they were back then. They'll be like, "Oh
yeah.
man, I remember this kind of riff." You know, I remember the old days of "Ride My Rocket" and "I'll Be All Right."
Yeah, exactly. Like
And you could start
this could be the
something
beginning
new.
of a career like, Elvis
Yes.
Iron Maiden has
or Iron Maiden.
literally had a second career renaissance by doing. Wait for it.
What's up?
Era tours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhere back in
doing
time,
their old shit again.
playing by embracing a version of the band that people from the past love, but people from the present never got to see or experience.
If you boil it down, isn't that what Clutch did when they tried to reinvent themselves more recently?
Yeah.
I don't know who Clutch is. Is
It's
Clutch an alternative band?
it's a rock band.
Oh, okay.
Well, we're they're Clutch is, I think, on the leading edge of the wave of like trying to like capitalize on guys our age, where like we grew up with rock and roll in the 90s,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh yeah, remember when this was fun? And where it's like, yeah, and all the guys who actually know what they're doing are like, yeah, no, fuck off. This was one of the dark times.
We associate you with one of the dark time bands.
Yeah.
If you had a hit during the dark times, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
No amount of
Which don't get me wrong, I love some rock and roll, like Foo Fighters and stuff like that. But it came out of the 90s, therefore it exists in the memory hole.
Yeah. And there were a lot of bands like that. There were a lot of bands that had put out some rather decent stuff. It was during the dark era where no one was really listening to rock anymore. You got your bands like, Drowning Pool, Seether, all of them.
And that's what led me to bands like Iron Maiden.
Yes.
Like my first metal record was Iron Maiden's Brave New World in 2000. When we were kids, like I think And Justice for All was the first album I ever bought with my own money. But I didn't care about it. Like that's just what rock was at that point. But you have a masterpiece, a timeless masterpiece like And Justice for All. Which, if you guys haven't heard it corrected with the bass track turned up, Jesus Christ, is it amazing. But it's kind of one of those like, like rock and roll died essentially popularly in the 90s.
I wouldn't say died. I would say it was assassinated. I'd say it was intentionally assassinated.
I'll say that it was assassinated.
It got JFK'd.
Yeah.
Definitely got JFK'd.
In my supervisor at work, he has this interesting theory. You guys might back me up on this, maybe not. I'm open to all opinions, but he says that the moment that Vanilla Ice made that like rock remix, like rap track or whatever, was like the day like heavy metal, like rock as a genre kind of died in the 90s. It's a out there theory. I wanted to bring it up here because we were talking about we're talking about death and rock in
And
the
also,
90s.
you're talking to a couple of massive Queen fans.
Yeah, okay.
Sentinel, I mean, I know you love the Flash Gordon soundtrack and a couple of
Yeah,
the
I
other.
love 80s Queen. I love
Dude,
80s
I
Queen.
love Queen as a band right down to the early stuff where it was basically power metal before Rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's kind of the origin of power metal.
Makes sense.
It's a couple of years before Rainbow, the band would actually start. But holy shit, like they're already talking about like, ogres and fucking rainbows and shit. Like it was a start of what power metal would become. Essentially just like, hey, rock and roll fantasy.
Yeah. That's I could have described it any better.
Yeah. Soul Assassin. That's a perfectly good analogy, even though that wouldn't come about until the 2000s.
Yeah.
Well, I would say no. Soul Assassin Metal got Order 66 and went underground in the 90s, and only got to come back in forms like Linkin Park, Korn, and
Slipknot.
And I will say there are excellent examples of brilliant musicianship that survived that era, but only a few.
Boosh, I wouldn't disagree with that because I
Bush is
remember.
correct.
Yeah,
Bush
Boosh, I wouldn't disagree with that because, they say that was kind of one of the reasons, like in terms of gangster rap, like Tupac was killed because he didn't want to be conformed to death row. I know that's a different topic, but it kind of spills into the whole decline of heavy metal through all these attacks from corporate and politicians. I
And when
think
we
it
talk
just
about, go ahead.
no, I think it all just comes full circle at that point. But go ahead, Sentinel.
I was just going to say, in America, when we talk about killing metal, I want to specifically talk when we talk about that. And in this situation, we're talking about how corporate radio killed heavy metal in America.
Yes,
heavy metal everywhere else was fine.
Mm-hmm.
In 1994, the two biggest albums in
That's the
Japan.
fucked up part is it actually kind of blossomed in these other genres in the 90s. But it kept getting suppressed on American radio.
Yeah.
Heavy metal in Europe was bigger than ever. Heavy metal in South America was bigger than ever. In 1994, the biggest selling album in Japan wasn't Mariah Carey's Holiday, that big album she had in '94. It was Yngwie Malmsteen's Seventh Sign.
And you know what? There's a fucking good reason Seventh Sign should be the biggest selling album.
It's amazing.
Oh, it's a fucking phenomenal piece. But again, like you guys are saying, we weren't even able to experiment musically because I believe it's called power metal, Courtney, and it's where most of us came from. Bands like Halloween, Gamma Ray, and we are going to go into the actual guts of power metal at some point.
We have to delineate it somewhat from European power metal and American power metal because they're very similar, but they're two different animals.
That's actually the funny part is they start from different origins and yet they end up in the same place.
Yes. Like bands, of course, like Rammstein, they had different origins, different like feels, but like I said, remember how I said everything kind of comes full circle with like Eric Clapton and Peter Frampton? It's the same concept with like an American band like Metallica and like a European band like Rammstein. They have different tastes and different feels, but at the end of the day, they all come back full circle because it's still the same, principle. of heavy metal, technically.
And Courtney knows me well enough that Wizard Rock is going to get my attention 100% of the time. Oops.
What?
Well, I mean, it's not even oops. I will own that. Like, Wizard Rock sounds fucking amazing. A bunch of assholes with guitars talking about wizards and shit, will get our attention. Whether it be Halloween, whether it be Rainbow, whether it be, me just saying it, like, we'll sit up and pay attention for at least 5 seconds. I mean, Sentinel, we did it with the Halloween episode.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like, this is like, we're nerds. Like, we're nerds with fucking musical instruments in our hands.
It's a basic idea.
Exactly. It's just like, this is one of the themes I had behind, if I ever get the band together, Pathfinder.
Mm-hmm.
Is power is a hard rock, essentially space exploration kind of thing, or like, because that's something I've always loved, like from the time when I was a little kid. I've always been fascinated by space.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those, like, what the fuck is out there? Like, no one knows. There is no good answer to what's out there.
You want a good album that involves kind of space and what's out there?
I want to create another one.
Oh, listen to Evergrey, the band, progressive metal band Evergrey. Listen to their album. Fuck, I can't believe it. It's a concept. God damn it! You know when you're trying to remember something and you forget it at the worst possible moment? No, just give me a minute.
Oh, Courtney,
In search of truth.
Like, you knew this is who I was. Like, I'm not shy about it. Like, this is who I always am.
Give in to your nerdiness, young Metallicus.
Dude, Space Truck. If you think I'm not going to cover Space Truckin' on that record, Soul Assassin, you're wrong. Because that's just such a fun song.
So, back to this point on Pantera, with them with Dimebag trying to forget his past, I think that unknowingly, in the long run, like when they came out with the later albums in the 90s, it unknowingly opened a can of worms that eventually everybody else kind of got sucked into, because they always say those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. And I think that's overall what happened when they kind of switched gears into a more darker, more brooding.
And that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
We talked about Star Trek a lot.
If Dimebag never was killed, he would probably be fucking clowned online endlessly for trying to pigeonhole those Pantera albums.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. You would never hear the end of it.
Belongs as like an 80s power, honestly, like first wave power metal band.
It probably would have made the front pages, like if this were in the Twitter age and all that, it probably would have made the trending page because of just how big something like that would encompass. Like, you're nullifying your past projects like that.
Imagine power metal. Imagine we have imagine there's a different timeline right now.
Yes.
Where Dimebag had lived, okay, and he finally is embracing. He and Pantera never ignored their previous albums. Let's say we have a stream on power metal.
Yeah.
One of the albums, especially American power metal, that people are going to bring up is Pantera's power metal, because you're right. That is a power metal album.
Yeah.
And it's from 1988, which is...
It's from 1988. It's an American power metal album called Power Metal.
Yeah. It was like the anthem, basically, like their like constitution for power metal, in a sense.
It would have been thought of the same way we think of Venom's black metal as black metal.
Yes.
Not even just like the creation of the genre musically, but like the intent behind it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good question, Courtney. I wanted to hear what Pope has to say about that.
Wait, was it rock equals power metal? Sometimes.
See,
No,
that,
I would say power wizard rock on steroids equals power metal.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes sense.
Sentinel's right.
Yeah, because that's the thing I like about like just rock in general. There's so many subgenres. You think one band belongs in one, but they're actually another one. You know what I mean? So it's just always that's
And
how
sometimes they
diverse
start as one and then get popularity
transition.
as something else.
Yeah, kind of like what Pantera did, where they were basically power metal one moment, and then they transitioned to dark, like
Well, I
brooding.
mean, they tried to be a power metal band essentially from the U.S. in the late '80s, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And they could have just been a standard heavy metal band, but they didn't want that apparently. And then power metal should have been their absolute magnum opus to the world, and it was to those of us who actually like the record.
Yeah.
Or who actually have ever heard it. Because this shit just makes sense. Like, it's just a good record.
Yeah, that's the thing about a lot of these albums. Like, I remember listening to power metal for the first time in years. It's like it has like 10 like great songs, whereas in other albums, like it was like you have like one or two stick out amazing out like songs, and then the other songs, I mean, they're all right, but it was just consistently. It was like a good wrestling card almost. Like you have every match on the card is
most
just
of it's
enjoyable.
pretty shit, but it's okay. And then
Yeah.
you have a couple of really good, highlights.
Yeah. That's what I mean. It's like a good wrestling card where you're like, yeah, this match was okay. Now this match right here was freaking awesome, you know.
No, I mean you're a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
Now, how would you like wrestling if it wasn't for the inclusion of Motorhead with songs like The Game?
Yeah. I mean,
like
they retain?
This is the contribution to wider culture that music makes.
Yes.
And let's face it, without music, we never would have had Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah.
And that would be a shame because Macho Man is the best human being of all time. Let's face it, like, even just like from his highlights, Macho Man is just like he encompasses the best of the human spirit.
Yeah. And it all just goes back to, it goes back to rock. It's like you'll have the one band that encompasses, a different type of feeling, and you'll have another band that encompasses.
Courtney's not wrong when she says this.
Yeah.
Cool.
They are cool.
I just had a fucking epiphany. I just had a fucking epiphany.
What is it, Sentinel?
All right. Imagine this. Imagine Pantera pulls out the memory hole, that music from their memory hole.
Thank you, Courtney.
Okay, and so you have their very first album, Projects in the Jungle.
I've been saying this right along, Courtney.
And then you have their very last album, Reinventing the Steel.
Yeah.
You look at that discography. What discography does that most look like another band's? It looks like Judas Priest.
Yeah.
It looks like Judas Priest.
Actually. I mean, now that you put it that way, like, it does.
It looks like Judas Priest from Rock and Roller to Demolition. That's what it looks like.
Well, it looks like Judas Priest from Rock and Roll to Sin After Sin, which is when they started becoming popular.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about
They
their
actually,
whole, like,
they
if you look
actually
at like
started
the first to the
understanding
very last
what
that record, that 25-year period.
yeah, like we're but I think it was Sin After Sin that really cemented Judas Priest in the beginning of heavy metal, of like the canon of heavy metal. Um, Especially because a lot of it was just more speed metal than anything else. But at the same time, the message was just like, holy shit, like this is actually gaining popularity. Like we might have a winner here. And I hate saying that about my favorite band, but
I'm all that. Go ahead.
but you do have to hit a point where you're kind of like, oh shit, this is what we are.
Yeah.
Like we're not just shit posting anymore.
Like we are legit. We're trying to be legit at this point.
Oh, I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
they're legit as soon as fucking Victim of Changes fucking hits the fucking record scratcher. To be honest,
Victim of Changes, there's a reason that fucking song will be in the Priest live show to the end of time.
it's timeless.
It belongs to be.
It's timeless, and the message is timeless itself. Is time passes and things erode, and you can't do anything about it. And there's a
Songs like
horror in that, and there's a beauty
The
in that.
River belongs to the ends of death, and Evening Star will continue to the end of time, essentially. Like that's just going to be part of who you are. Like when you look at it, like what would WWF at this point? Well, that was what 2 name changes ago. But what would WWF be without the game?
Yeah.
Without Triple H or the song, the game?
Both
yeah.
of them.
Or like it goes back to what I was saying earlier about Tens by Pantera. What would it be if it was not featured in that Broly movie for Dragon Ball Z? It would just be another song by Pantera.
Yep.
Like you have the thing with with heavy metal as it pertains to pop culture, it has to help each other.
It's exactly that scene from Quantum Leap where it's like, I'm retarded.
Yeah.
And then just jumps into it. Well, welcome to being Pope Metallicus in 2023. Because I have a couple head injuries and I don't speak so good no more. I'm joking, by the way, but well, partially joking.
But like it goes back to what I was saying, like the music scene and pop culture, they have to intertwine some way, but you can't make one based on the other. Like you have to operate it independently, Otherwise you're basically no different than the typical clout chaser that you see on TikTok these days. You're just trying to catch
one of those things
whatever's
where,
good.
Like, I love where like the really popular people and the really popular bands of this period would also like kind of maintain some sort of sense of self-awareness.
Yes.
And not take themselves too seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the problem that black metal fell into.
Oh my god.
Is they forgot they were a bunch of fucking nerds with face paint and guitars. That's why I love
black metal. It's fucking trash. And Imperatus needs to come, and Mila both need to come get their people.
No.
Um,
First time I've heard their names mentioned in a while.
I
But
mean, no, Imperatus is a co-host of this show, and I love him to death.
yeah,
But it's just like black metal. Where did you go wrong? Like the first and second wave guys were awesome. And we're going to talk about that, not too distant future. But modern black metal fans,
Oh my
just like, I
god.
want to beat you with a stick.
yeah.
They take it so
Yeah,
seriously.
they take it so fucking seriously. It's just like, God damn it, why?
It's like a
They're not
cult
supposed
almost.
to take it that seriously.
It like becomes a cult after a while.
It really
That's what
does.
they
Well, I
do,
mean, that's
seriously.
what they mean by true cult and shit like that. It's just like, God damn it, fuck off.
They're like, this is one of the reasons we're in this position to begin with.
Yeah,
Y'all taking this shit way too seriously. It's not supposed to be taken that seriously. It's
right.
supposed to be the opposite. You know, it's supposed to be the perfect getaway, but of course, commercialization, forgetting about what got bands to the big dance. And like you said, it was an era of darkness for rock where other bands, like I mentioned, like you guys mentioned, Linkin Park, Slipknot.
But when you look at it,
Mhm.
rock has always been kind of that weird voice in your mirror when you wake up in the morning going, like, yeah, you're popular, but
At
you're
what
fucking
cost?
ugly as hell.
Yeah,
Like,
at what cost?
like,
And it,
yes, we're popular, but we did the bad things too.
mhm.
Um,
And there,
and that is a necessary quality
mhm.
of
and
any
it,
healthy culture is the criticism of it.
Yeah,
and it,
self-reflection too.
and it
Yep.
sucks that these bands drag the whole genre to the ground because look at all the other like heavy metal bands like that came in the 2000s, like I was just thinking that Opeth and Mastodon, they're reduced to irrelevancy because the dark times basically.
Oh, Heath, we are going to educate you on what happened to European metal in the meantime because it was an entire renaissance and it's a whole new musical movement called the new wave of traditional heavy metal.
Yes,
Let's
it's
do
beautiful.
That's
it.
fucking amazing. We're gonna have that'll be for another day because me and
Okay.
Seth
If you
have already
thought
done that.
Crisis Resurrection was a one-off, check this out.
Yeah, right.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to, in the words of
Oh,
Metallica, riding the freaking lightning.
well, that was
We'll give you
that
something to ride. Yeah.
I mean, that was a band that I mean, Metallica is one of the goats of all time for sellouts.
Yeah,
And like
Mhm.
they were one of the best bands of all time, and then they fucking sold out. Now they suck.
the Napster shit. The
Oh, way
violence and
before
drug.
that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm just echoing what Sentinel was saying like earlier on the stream because it had a role. Like all that shit had a role to it.
Yep. Well, I mean, Soul Assassin's also not wrong.
I like what he said at the bottom. I like what he said at the bottom. That is pretty accurate. So I am trying to take his red pill.
Yeah, well, but like rock music, we're kind of just cultural commentarians
Yeah,
where we're just seeing the fun stuff and then making fun of it.
yeah.
Um, which is why so many of us are, adopted the internet well, where we just start making memes.
See that's another thing that people don't understand is like rock was a big part of the internet getting bigger.
before
well.
before the internet, there was rock and roll where
There was.
there would be entire bands made on taking down one fucking thing.
Yeah.
I could see how like really good memes really have a lot of the spirit of OG rock and roll in it. To be honest,
The rebellious side,
yeah. And how funny is it that all of the big, like anti-establishment bands now are completely aligned. Are completely
Are
aligned with the
complete
establishment.
establishment.
Oh
Yeah.
my god, that is weird how they do a complete 160 as the millennium turns. It is funny how that works.
Because it's like, oh yeah, we're completely anti-establishment. This message brought to you by fucking Pfizer. Fuck off.
About the size of it, huh?
Yeah.
Like right, like that's how it's gotten these days, and it's just like, go fuck yourself.
And also, you know what? It almost, we were talking about wrestling before, and we were talking about Attitude
Oh,
Era in the
yeah.
90s. If you boil it down, that's kind of what we need that renaissance again. We need to go back to doing crotch chops and telling people to just suck it, and
You'd
that
like
was
to.
like that's what metal was back in the day, and now everyone's just establishment
and
because they don't want to lose money.
And that's why
it's actually really cool that you brought that up, because it's kind of the same bucket that metalheads and wrestling fans get thrown into. It's
Yes.
just like, there's a reason we're the same people, because it was fun entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are we, just fun people, but a lot of the bands have a point to make.
Yes.
And they do so very loudly. One might direct your attention to Paranoid by Black Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
Or the real political song of that album, Hand of Doom.
Gotcha. I'll have to keep an eye on those.
If you've never heard it, it sounds a lot like the fentanyl epidemic going through the United States these days, don't it?
Oh shit. Yeah, I mean Pantera. It was just one of those things. They had a formula, but they wanted to forget about their past and become
that was the thing.
commercialized.
They had a formula and it worked for them, and then they changed it up entirely.
Yeah, and they
I
just.
thought it was they discovered a formula and then they wrote it until they couldn't, until they had no creativity to draw from anymore.
Yeah.
That would be the generous interpretation. These guys were a good rock band.
Yes.
A good rock and metal band up until they decided to go for popularity.
I don't disagree with that, Soul. Drugs did kind of get in the way of everything.
Yeah.
But that was the same for a lot of other bands too.
Success kills bands.
Yes. Because that's the thing.
Because it kills ambition.
It kills the spirit of the band.
It kills the spirit because everyone's talking about their lifestyle at that point. Because when you make as much money, your lifestyle goes up. You get access to shit that you never could get access
paying
to.
Attention to what you were fucking saying.
Yeah.
They're just paying attention to how you live.
Yes. That's why
I'm a fucking hypocrite compared to half the shit I used to do.
Mm-hmm. Who was the guy from? Like I said, I'm still kind of new. I'm not as ingratiated into the history of metal as you guys are, because you guys are aficionados of the stuff. So, who was the dude from?
That is one of the best things I've ever been called on the internet.
Yeah, Hey, I call it as I see it, man. Like, you guys know your
I usually
shit.
get called things like asshole. Uh,
I mean, you and me both, but
but that's a very good way of saying that is, we're the guys who genuinely enjoyed this shit for what it was
yeah.
and for what it is. Like we are like there are no conditions on my love of early Pantera. Like it's cheesy, yes, and I love it for that.
Yeah.
Like
If
we love it for what it is.
I always say, people always ask me in real life, like, man, why you gotta be weird all the time? I'm like, because being normal is fucking boring. Take notes, Arcasul.
And Darius, like this is why this channel exists. Essentially, it's just like so bands can't just pretend that things don't exist anymore. It's like,
Yeah.
no, they existed. We bought them.
Yeah.
Like, like we've seen them. Yeah, well,
Yeah. Like I said, your lifestyle goes like, that's the thing with rock. When you're these rock bands, they're producing a high adrenaline, like type of music. And of course, as the money comes up, your lifestyle goes up and you get access to things that you could never even imagine. So you're going to want to keep up the adrenaline. Kind of like a NASCAR driver. You like, they're going to be driving fast. They're going to want to pursue something that gets their adrenaline up, Or look at guys like that MMA fighter, Cowboy Cerrone. He now wasn't just an MMA fighter. Dude was doing like caving. He was flying jets
the
and
man
stuff
was
because he
living
just,
the life.
yeah, like people will do stuff to keep their adrenaline high because that's how they see life. And a lot of these
And then
bands,
you
they
see the
saw the
polar
money.
opposite in every veteran.
Yeah, they got the money and they just wanted to add on to the adrenaline, add on to, the hype, and they just started doing drugs and stuff. And that's why a lot of those heavy metal bands went down the shits because of
I
that.
mean, you're not wrong. They did chase the dragon a little bit,
Yeah.
and when you're chasing a dragon into what we would call corporatism, it's a bad idea.
It's funny you say dragon, and I'm thinking of that scene from South Park. They're playing the
That's
video
exactly
game.
what I'm referencing.
That's it. It's. I couldn't have thought of a better comparison. It's just like that scene from South Park.
Because South Park is so perfect at defining it.
Yes.
Oh, just like you're just chasing the dragon.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, everybody wants to be popular, whatever. Like early South Park, they were trying to get canceled, and that's why everyone loves it. Because it's some of the funniest shit that's ever been put on celluloid.
By the way, it's time to formally declare this. South Park, you're the GOAT. Simpsons,
you're the GOAT.
You kicked even 90 Simpsons, which was the GOAT of all GOATs, has been destroyed by South Park. 26 years, unwavering, never got their balls clipped, never sold out. South Park, Matt Stone, Trey Parker, you are the GOATs.
What the fuck are the Simpsons in
Trey
the 2020s?
Parker and Matt Stone are just like some of the cultural guideposts for our age.
Like
they put Muhammad.
They make fun of fucking everything,
bro. They put Muhammad in a cartoon before people were getting killed for putting Muhammad in a cartoon.
Bro,
and they actually got
overseas when they did that.
Yeah, they got terroristic threats from Islamic groups
I was
over that.
already in
No. Here's the thing. They had this. The Jesus Christ.
Because
the Jesus Christ guy. Well, they had this like episode where they had like super religious friends, and then they had like Muhammad and Buddha and Jesus Christ and all this other ones. But this was like 2002, 2001 is way before like 9/11 and Islam.
That's one of the cool parts I thought about Trey Parker and Matt Stone. It's something heavy metal lost a while ago is It's fine to make fun of religion,
Yeah,
but you need to make fun of all of it.
all of it.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't just pick out Christianity.
This is why Slayer got pussified at the end. They didn't go after. I mean, they willfully went after the Christians.
Considering Tom Araya is a conservative Christian.
Had no problem doing that.
The man himself.
Yes, it's easy to go after the motherfuckers who won't hit you back.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
go after Islam.
I'm going to make fun of all of it.
Yeah, me too. Doesn't
Why?
matter if
Because
you see me
it's
on the
funny.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you see me on the Discord. Like, I've gotten a lot of shit for going after not just the NFL, but going after their fan base, because it's like, you motherfuckers are part of the same problem. The sports on the decline as much as Roger Goodell.
Heath, I know you're a huge fan of hockey as well.
Hell yeah.
Like, even before I joined the Marine Corps, I was part of a hockey team. Like, it was kind of one of those things that led me to that point in my life where I'm like, yeah, okay.
Like, you gotta, like, that's the thing about hockey. Like, in like, how many people in football, like, remember the whole Myles Garrett thing where he, like, hit the quarterback with his own helmet?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, if that was in hockey, you know what that coach would have said? You better send it back, motherfucker. You better hit him with your helmet next.
It was just like, then I guess you better find your ball sack and go fucking send it back to him, huh?
Like, remember that whole series between Vancouver and Boston during the Stanley Cup? Both teams fucking hated each other.
I actually didn't. That's one of my big bugaboos.
I watched that whole series,
get to
Pope.
see it because I was actually being deployed at the time.
God dang!
And it was the one time my fucking team has ever been to the Stanley Cup my entire life,
and you missed it.
I didn't get to see it.
But no, I'm gonna tell you right now. So, there was a point where one of
the I hate everything.
Well, there was a point, right, where I think the guy's name was Burroughs.
Especially fucking Vancouver, because as you know, Sentinel can point out, I have a special hate for Northern California.
Yeah.
So do I, and I live here.
I don't blame you guys. I've heard it's a shithole up there.
I have a specific hate boner because it is that beautiful, and yet it's so badly run.
That is true. But back to my point. During the Vancouver-Boston series, I think it was one of the dudes, Burroughs, bit one of the Bruins players in a scuffle. And the next game, they get into another scuffle, and the Bruins player is literally shoving his fingers down Burroughs' throat, being like, "Yeah, bite it again, pussy." You know, that's how. That's the definition of send it back. You know, that's the pure definition.
And,
you know,
I know you guys both have to go.
I gotcha.
So
I just want to tell that story.
And you know, this is one of those feel good episodes of we just get to get our opinions on a band off of our chests.
Yeah.
And
you told me shit I didn't even know about. You know, like I said.
I mean, early Pantera is great. Late Pantera is not.
Mm-hmm. And it's weird that people hated
It's weird that people celebrate the rotting corpse of late Pantera.
Yeah.
When it's
most,
you know, prophetic moments were behind it.
Yeah. That makes sense. It all makes sense. Like, it's a learning experience. I'm still trying to learn the ropes, you know, of music that I listened to when I was a kid.
Journey, man.
Yeah.
This is why, you know, all the bands like Killswitch Engage, Lamb of God, Shadows Fall.
They're all
they suck.
Bands from the 80s.
No, I'm going to tell you why they suck. That entire fucking genre sucks because it was all based on that later form of Pantera, and they derived their entire fucking genre from it. And look at its lasting power.
Yep, they're still playing it 35 years later.
Hell, you wouldn't even know about how good Killswitch Engaged was unless you had known that they were I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that CM Punk used that as his theme
I
song in
mean, I'll
WWE for a
argue with
bit.
that because I'm actually from where they came from.
Hmm.
I'm from
Okay.
Massachusetts, so
I
we
gotcha.
knew about Killswitch Engage,
Mhm.
but you're not wrong when it
I'm
came
talking about
to
the genre
prior
as a whole.
popularity. The only reason Killswitch Engage became more popular was, due to WWE.
Yeah, and also, Sentinel. Would you put Mastodon and Opeth into that list, or do you think they're different altogether?
But they were never genrefied as as a new wave of American heavy metal band, to be honest.
Okay. Okay.
And
I want to start that as a hashtag, like new wave of American heavy metal.
Let's get it. Start it on the Discords.
and
Let's fucking
I'm
do
basing a
it.
lot of this. I'm basing a lot of this on the way Sam Dunn in that Doc Headbangers Journey genrefied
As much
band.
as me and Razor both have problems with that fucking cunt.
Oh, I do too. I do too. He's Canadian, so I instantly have a so. But
Signal
he
is
gets a
so
lot right.
xenophobic.
He got a lot right with that Doc. He got a lot off, but he got a lot right. Okay.
Yeah,
And
I mean, like that's the thing. You can be an imperfect person and still do a lot of things right.
oh,
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that Tony Iommi would look back on the early Black Sabbath albums and still see things he did wrong.
And that's all the stuff we love.
Yeah,
All the
unfortunately
stuff
for
we
him,
love.
that's the stuff that everyone likes. But we can talk about that all day. Heath, where can people find you?
So I'm found in two places: YouTube and Twitch. On YouTube, I've uploaded a plethora of content from gaming to commentary. I'm kind of working on a big project right now that I hope to reveal as the week goes by. But I'm mostly
Yeah.
found on Twitch, at Heath Nation 2465, and you'll most likely see me streaming like 3 or 4 times a week. Doing different games. Doesn't matter if Hogwarts Legacy, Mario Kart, Fortnite, or I can bring back the classics like Mortal Kombat, Splinter Cell. Depends on what I'm in the mood for.
In the word of our Lord and Savior, oh yeah.
Ooh yeah, dig it. But yeah, you can find me on YouTube or Twitch.
But no, absolutely check him out. He's a great channel and a really good dude. We've been part of games and stuff like that for what, about a year now?
Yeah, about a year and a half.
And I've been trying to get you on the show the entire time. It just hasn't worked out.
Yeah, I was like, I gotta think of. Oh, wait a minute, we'll talk about Pantera for a bit.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I've been holding back from Pantera.
Mhm.
Also because, later
It's a
Pantera exists.
it's a polarizing. It has a polarizing history among all different, you know, fan bases of rock,
Among the
and I
metalheads.
understand that.
Yeah, and you know what? It should have a polarizing history because it is a polarizing band.
Yeah, it's basically the. I can't
And
use this.
although anyone now saying that Dimebag Darrell is problematic and the fact that he had a Stars and Bars fucking V makes me want to beat people with the back end of that guitar.
He was loved by almost like everyone in that whole, genre.
Right? It's just like, and it's just
that
like, oh god, fuck off.
that fake fans the fake Pantera reunion tour just got like sidetracked because of racist comments
Yeah,
found in
because
the
of
video.
quote unquote racism. And meanwhile, the actual
Stupid.
fans are just like, go fuck yourself. No one
Exactly.
cares.
Yeah, no one gives a fuck.
At first,
Yeah.
at first I was like, evilishly like laughing to myself because I had some problems with them calling that a Pantera reunion.
Fair.
But
Because
Yes.
people
only,
never got some
only
people
half
who
of the
some
band
people
is
who love
actually
Pantera
cool.
never got to see them live.
Yeah.
Who just want to hear that music live. And because of some random video clip from 30 years ago that was recently discovered online, and some little fucking bitch with they them pronouns decided to go on a make themselves famous by trying to get the band canceled. Go fuck yourself.
And for anyone who says, like, for mistakes my intent, I want these people who have, like, fake pronouns and shit like that to go hurt themselves.
Yeah.
I really don't care. The
They're
rest of us
basic.
have shit to do.
It's like I've even said this. I've gotten a lot of shit for saying this too. Like these people with the pronouns and all that, they're no different than the typical unpopular girl in school that wants to slit her wrist because
Mhm.
no fucking dude wants to fuck them behind the high school football
It's the
stadium.
worst
Facts.
of the emo movement.
The
Yeah,
trend
it is
getting
a
a fucking
byproduct.
Given
sex
a platform.
getting a sex change today is no different. Is they think
It's
of as like getting a tattoo. They think it makes them individual and better somehow. It makes
Yeah.
them like
Which
I've
I'm probably going to
transitioned
get
from a
myself
cocoon
shut
to a
off of YouTube at
butterfly.
this point, but
Yeah.
Fuck it. Might as well go out in a blaze of glory, Pope.
exactly. Here's how veterans view a lot of this shit is, across is for attention, down is for fucking results. Thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
Oh God. Like, it's one of the things I hate about modern rock and roll is that they've adopted this venal attitude of like,
Inclusion.
oh my
and
God,
shit.
my life is so hard because my dad doesn't like me. Like, no shit. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called tough love.
Yeah,
Always be
exactly.
miserable.
It's just like, this is what rock bands are based on. Like, yeah, no shit. Life sucks and then you die.
Yeah. It is what it is. And I agree with you, Pope, and like it is an amplified version of the fucking emo movement that was like on the rate for a good bit. It's ridiculous.
And it sucks because there's a lot of rock bands out there like Airborne and stuff like that
Yeah.
who are newer bands who know how to have fun.
Yes.
They know what
That's
fun
a band.
is.
That's a band that knows how to make the songs that their fans love, knows how to make songs that people
And even
move
if you go
to.
to see them live, they just know what fun is.
Same with Sabaton.
Yeah, same with Sabaton. I will 100% say that. I've seen those guys live 5 times now. And holy shit, like they just understand why people go to rock shows. Like, leave a Sabaton show without a smile on your face. I dare you. And I bet most people won't be able to do it. Because they're just that good. Like, let's face it, Sabaton's just a fun band. Early Pantera was just a fun band.
It was Van Halen worship.
Yeah.
It was Van Halen and Preach Worship, and they did really good out of it. And to the point where, I would substitute power metal for maybe Turbo. Sentinel, am I wrong for saying that? Like, if you could swap,
hey man,
Turbo
if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do, man. I could take either or sometimes.
Well, no, but like in terms of Priest's discography, like
Sure,
if they flip,
if they put out
they
power
just
metal
deleted
instead of
Turbo and
Turbo,
added in something like power metal,
that'd be awesome.
it'd be fucking killer.
Because if you listen to power metal, there's a lot of what would become Painkiller there.
Mm-hmm. Well, in 1988, you had power metal, and then also Judas Priest dropped the album
Ram It Down.
Ram It Down. Yes, that's name I was looking for. I figured that was the song itself, but I'm retarded half the time. So, um, but no, like picture if Ram It Down was this. Although that's not saying that there are not amazing songs on Ram It Down, and we'll get to that at some point.
We'll cover Ram It Down because it definitely deserves a little bit.
We were going to cover every Priest album at some point because let's face it, it's my favorite band and it's my show.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like last week, we do them one at a time. And we've already done, we've done what, 3 albums now?
I was there for Screamin'.
We do need to do a redux of Defenders of the Faith.
I would love to do that too.
Yeah. Although we did a 40th anniversary party for Screaming for Vengeance, my favorite fucking album of all time. That was awesome. That was a lot of fun, and you guys should go watch it if you haven't already. We got a little off topic, but you know, that's what we do here. These albums serve as a, you know, starting point for conversation and then go off into the weeds.
Yeah.
That's just, and you know, he's just been a part of this community just like I have. Guess what? That's how nerds have fun.
Yeah.
We just you know, state something that seems fairly tame, and then just leads us off on this weeks-long quest of.
Well, why did it happen?
Exactly. All right, we ended up in the weeds of lore here, but it's an amazing journey, and especially for me, like, you know, it's the best Pantera has to offer.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm not being an asshole by saying that, but just like their early stuff is musically some of my favorite.
Yeah, just everyone. It's a different world for sure. Like, you got some people that like that have their definition of heavy metal, and then there are some that have their other definition of heavy metal.
It's like an entire genre of people who are like, "Oh yeah, heavy metal," and then they'll pull out Pantera. It's just like, no, that's basically rock and roll. Like, heavy metal is an entirely different genre than what Pantera fans apparently seem to think. Because the people who like Pantera, like the last 2 albums, Pantera, they've never actually heard real Pantera. Like when they were actually recording, or when half of the band was still alive to correct them. And what we're left with is
it's a conundrum.
You know, of the actual original musical movement, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what, Darius, you're completely correct. Ride My Rocket is straight hair metal, and I love it.
It is
songs can just be fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is why genres like punk and metal exist, is because musicians tend to get up their own ass sometimes.
Yes, they do.
And they think they're way more important than they are.
Yes, they do.
And then there's us, who have just been sitting there trolling them the entire time, just like, you know what? We just want to have fun with whatever time I have on Earth.
I specifically love trolling the people who said they were the cool guys in the beginning, and then ended up
because
thinking they're cool, but being the exact douchebag who loaded their family on a train to Auschwitz. I'm talking about Dee Snider.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm referring to. And I will continue to fuck with D. Snyder whenever the fuck opportunity gives me it.
Yeah, the ones that have
Because-
to preach that they're cool in the rock industry, they wind up being the biggest douchebags. That's basically
No, it's the ones that pretended they did something. Like
Yeah,
they did,
yeah,
like
that.
they did something significant, and then align with the fucking the state
normies.
and the government, and tell you you're a fucking insurrectionist, or you're this or you're that. D,
And
you
meanwhile,
are the same
like,
guy who killed
you have
your own
guys
family.
like John Schaefer, who have always been against that. That literally grenaded probably the best band he's ever been a part of for that, and yet still maintains that stance of "fuck you, I know what's right."
Yeah.
That's why he's like, whatever happens to him, whatever happens, he's always going to be his legacy is always good. He's going to be Johnny. He's going to be the Johnny Cash of metal, because nobody's going to be able to look back on his life and say,
I don't give a
sold
fuck who
out.
says what. John Schaefer is going to go down like you say, Sentinel, Johnny Cash, of artists who actually took on the government on their own terms and gave him the middle finger.
He talked the talk and he walked the walk.
It's one of those, yeah, that's nice. Like, oh yeah, well, look what we did to your friend. Yeah, and that's why you're an asshole. Fuck off.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's kind of what the government is becoming, and it's one of the reasons I'm becoming growingly ashamed of having fought for it. Because you know, fighting for the nation and fighting for this government are two different things.
Yes,
true.
I agree. I completely.
That's
agree.
what people don't understand about it. It's like you could. One of the big things I hated that Bill Clinton said, "You're like, oh, we don't like people that love the country but hate our government." It's like, yeah, there's a reason for that, dumbass.
Yeah, because
I didn't know he said that.
Yeah, he did.
Wow.
Because half of the shit the government does is fucking stupid.
I think that's the problem people, like a lot of the anti-war assholes, have with the military. It's they don't understand the people who serve aren't fighting for George W. Bush. They're fighting for the street that they grow up on and the church that they went to on Sunday.
Any of the closet leftists that might be watching, there's probably one of you. I don't know why you're here, but thank you for being here. Is one of those, like, yes, I went to Afghanistan under fucking Barack Obama. Like, guess what? Wars just happen.
Yeah.
This is a thing. It's not a, moral quandary of our time or whatever. Shut the fuck up. No one cares.
Yeah, it's a part of life these days. You got to fight to survive.
Well, as a fun question, do you have any idea how many years that America has not been at war with somebody?
It's only been a few, from what I've seen. 4. And those were in the 90s, I think, weren't they?
No, those were the
246 years of existence. We have not actually been at war with somebody.
Yeah. It's just natural. And you know what? You could look at any other government and say the same thing. You can look at it with Russia, China, doesn't matter.
Yeah. And you know what? It doesn't matter.
War has been bred into the DNA of every country that has ever existed.
It's not bred into the DNA of every country. It's part
the reality.
It's just a reality.
We don't like some motherfuckers.
To be alive is to fight and kill to survive.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
We're just like, yeah, I don't like you. Why? Because you look like an asshole to me. Like, that's...
And sometimes wars are that simple.
Yep, pretty much.
It's no different. It's no simpler than if you took off your gloves in a hockey rink. Oh yeah,
And,
I don't like the way you look. All right, drop gloves. Let's go.
and
You
let's
know.
face it. I mean, you guys know this. I get weird looks when I say this half the time,
Oh god.
but you don't have to hate someone to kill them.
Yeah,
That's true.
I agree.
Straight up. Like, I didn't have any actual particular hatred against the Taliban or whatever. They were fucking with the United States. That's why I joined the military. Or that's why I joined the Marine Corps. And
Yeah.
then we went and taught them better
That's why I jumped into a fight when my
of essentially why you don't fuck with the United States is we come kill you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And not only that, when we're done messing with you, we'll take a little bit of your oil back to our country because
Well,
you
the
know
funny
what?
thing is,
Fuck
I
it.
love that kind of meme because it's
Yeah.
wrong.
There was no oil, was there?
There was never any oil.
There was never any oil. It was never about the fossil fuels. It's like
No,
that
there
Oh,
just
scene
wasn't
from
any oil there.
no, there
well,
really wasn't.
it's like that
Iraq, especially, and Afghanistan, there never was.
it's like the Joker on The Dark Knight. It's not about the money, it's about sending a message.
I mean, you're not wrong, Heath.
I mean, if the United States really wanted to go to war for oil, we'd be invading Canada right now
Mm-hmm.
That is true.
and Mexico. And if
And
America was
Mexico.
an empire, we would have already conquered Mexico
And
and
Canada,
Canada.
calm down. We're trying to. It's just, it seems bad when half of a country is voting to be annexed by another.
Yeah.
Um, mhm. We love you guys, Canada.
Also,
You're,
your
bi-
parliament debates are fucking amazing.
that is true. They're fucking hilarious.
They're
I have
just
to see it. I've never seen one.
Oh
it's
my
just
god.
it's
Watch
literally
that
just
shit. It's
clips.
entertaining as
It's literally
hell to
just
watch.
Justin Trudeau standing in front of a podium and having to take shit from one side of the aisle. It's
Ever
freaking
since
amazing.
Andromeda and Stargate stopped being broadcast, it's the best entertainment product to ever come out of Canada.
Oh,
Damn. What the fuck, Canada? Do better.
Oh,
they
it's
tried
one of
doing
the
better.
funniest things I've ever goddamn seen. It makes the WWF actually look sane by comparison.
Yeah,
And this is shit that used to be made up.
yeah. And now it's like you're witnessing a promo in real life.
Yeah, it's like this shit used to be made up for people's entertainment because, WWF things.
Yeah.
And now, Macho Man versus Stone Cold.
It happened.
Well, I mean, that happens every day on Twitter
Or on TikTok, depending on what
or on TikTok,
type
and it's gay as
depending
fuck.
on what depending on what type of jackass is filming,
Yeah, and it's gay as fuck.
It's just not as cool because there's no crotch chopping,
No, it really isn't. Like, there's no coolness anymore. Like, there's no, like, you get looked at like you're a fucking asshole
Yeah.
if you actually respect America.
Or Americana.
Yeah, or Americana. Like, even the cool stuff, like really cool stuff, like the radio show.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sentinel, you and me have gone on about that, about radio dramas. They're really fucking cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's
Like what was that
We
one?
invented comic books, baseball, fucking. We
rock and
invented
roll.
the detective. We invented the detective novel.
Yep.
Yep.
The detective novel is an offshoot of essentially the film noir genre.
Yeah.
And you know what? So's half of the music.
See, that's the funny thing. I really want to make a movie that where the theme is what happens if America disappears and takes all of the American shit that was invented as a result of it with it.
With it. Yeah. Like we go into the memory hole and all of the cool stuff we've done just goes with us.
I would love to see the same thing with like if all white culture just disappeared and
Yep.
took everything we've ever done with it. What would the Earth look like?
Well, I mean, we can talk about that on Rumble. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's going on Rumble.
We're gonna talk about Rumble.
Although I'm willing to have that conversation because it's a fun conversation of, especially rock and roll is actually a culmination of actual acclimatization where basically Mexican music or Spanish music, black blue, Southern blues, and then American pop kind of all blended together.
Yeah, it's a
create rock and
co-creation of between three different
one of the greatest music genres of all time.
Yeah,
like
born in America because of the American melting pot.
Mm-hmm. Because we just kind of smash shit together until it works.
Yep.
We created rock and roll. And you know what? That is one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
That's like the greatest argument against all these anti-American assholes ever, in my opinion.
Yes.
You hate America? Fuck you. We made rock and roll. What's your rebuttal?
I mean, we have the two best prongs for that. Which you're not wrong, Sentinel. It's just like, yeah, you hate America? Well, fuck you. We created rock and roll. We also landed on the goddamn moon.
Yeah.
So, the rest of y'all can suck it. We are the greatest nation who's ever existed.
USA.
Go fuck yourself. I don't care. No, don't. Everyone mistakes patriotism with nationalism and all that. Like, oh, well, you love America.
It's not the same thing. It's not same thing.
It's like
it might sound similar
as a fun project.
They're weaponizing that language on Christians now. They call them Christian white nationalists. We have to the rise of Christian white nationalists and alternative right Trumpers. And it's like, no, you're just demonizing people who actually want to save the country from being completely destroyed.
Like, who want the country to continue being what it is.
What it is. And you're just trying to destroy it with endless immigration and cultural subversion.
Yeah, that's the huge misconception.
That's one of the things I hate most is that everyone's trying to blanket the West in terms
nationalism,
artistically and culturally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's just like no. We've done some really amazing shit. Fuck off.
Yeah, people always make that, that comparison between nationalism and patriotism. In theory, it might be worded, like the definitions might be worded the same, but they're two different animals. Like patriotism is all about devotion, whereas nationalism is all about maintaining identity. It might sound the same, but it's not. It's two separate concepts.
And as someone who actually went to war on the ground to defend nationalism, well, kind of nationalism,
national identity, basically.
National identity is America is a very interesting place nationally. In that our entire identity as a people is based on ideology.
Yeah.
We're a nation of ideals. We're the only one in the world. In the history of mankind, we're the only
There's no other country like it.
Created out of somebody's idea of fairness.
Yep. There's no other country like it.
Yep. And apparently a lot of people fucking hate that idea. And you know what? Those guys are assholes and can get in line and get clapped.
Yeah, and I
Because they
prefer they get clapped.
because especially once as long as I'm alive, guess what? You're not going to have your way.
Yeah, it's just they only it's basically rules for thee but not for me. That's basically what they
Mhm.
want because this generation's been raised on entitlement a lot, and I
And
absolutely hate
Solsass is
that.
completely correct.
Yeah,
So not many other countries in not only currently, but in the history of mankind
yeah,
can a man be born to a poor family and end up president of the United States. That's happened a couple of times
yes,
now. Like that's insane to most other countries. And you know what? Maybe we're the idiots. Especially considering how half of that has gone. But I like to believe in the fact that you know a nation can be run by a process like this and have it work out well. Because usually, like blind nationalism leads to things like communist China or nationalist Germany and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But American nationalism, I think, has always been far more positive. We're kind of just like, yeah, like people are people. Let them be people. Is essentially the entire message behind the American Revolution.
yeah,
And it's what we've been putting out into the void ever since. And Darius Munchausen's correct as well. Although, a lot of the others that we inspired, we then fought.
yeah.
Um,
Because they took a lot of their shit to extreme,
yeah,
like the
well,
French.
hey, congratulations, communism. You're all French, and therefore drop your fucking guns. Uh, I have very, very, very little patience for communists. I really do. Um, Especially because England has had a essentially Bill of Rights, what you look at as what we would call a Bill of Rights, since the 1200s.
Mhm.
The Magna Carta not only laid out the rights of the nobles, it laid out the rights of the peasants as well. Like, if you look at the Magna Carta, there are specific things that nobles are forbidden from doing. And this was legally binding. Like, this wasn't just like, oh, this is a cool political theory. No. In the 1200s, like, they actually forbade their own government from doing certain things, which kind of led to the attitude that led to the American Revolution. Of who the fuck are you to tell me I need to do things this exact way? Well, fuck off, essentially. And you know what? Darius is absolutely correct when he says, you know, nationalism kind of got a bad rap in the 20th century. Before that, it was fine.
They call that ultra nationalism.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
Nothing wrong with nationalism. Ultra nationalism, unchecked and under. If you're just
that
gonna follow to follow, you deserve where you go.
mhm,
yeah,
If you're just gonna follow to follow, you deserve to be where you end up.
yeah.
You
That's a
yeah,
got
whole
to what?
different beast altogether, right there.
yeah. It's like if you're following someone to follow them and to be part of a community, well, you deserve where you end up because you're not a driver at that point. Like you're following that ideology or that community. there's very little respect for me in that um in that mentality. Whereas if you're creating something, even if I disagree with it, if you're actually going against the mainstream and being a different thing, I have a lot more respect for you because you're essentially creating your own thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like regardless of what people feel about it, it's unique. And that's one thing that art is kind of vulnerable to is, when you look at things like World War II. Well, has anyone ever heard of an artist who lived after World War II that wasn't virulently anti-communist or anti-fascistic? Anyone? Like,
What's up?
no.
Hey, Pope, I've been hanging around for as long as I could, but I've got to get going, bro.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
This was so much fun. I wish I could stay and continue, but I've got
Yeah.
to go.
Yep, and
Yeah, me too.
you're not wrong.
See you later, guys.
I've actually got to go too.
Yeah,
just
I'll
realized
see you
what time
guys.
it is.
It is 6:19. Jesus.
In a couple of hours, I have to be on my own show.
Yep.
For Full Metal Jacket. That's going to be a fun one, and you're welcome to join me as well, Heath, if you want to.
Yeah, I would love to, but I'm going to be watching Revolution with the old man. So.
Yeah. But as always, I love having these conversations about bands that are really popular for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
When they're actually really good bands, they just
yeah, it's just a whole different animal.
They're really good bands, but not for the reasons people know them for.
Yeah, for sure.
And like you and me have been talking, Heath. Like Pantera is a great band, and you should listen to them.
Absolutely, they've made some great songs, but unfortunately, they've left a polarizing effect on heavy metal and rock in general, and we have to acknowledge that. Unlike what they did, where they couldn't acknowledge how their past got them to where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically just became,
and they couldn't just embrace that. That's where their music got them.
Yeah,
like,
and that was the basics.
Trying to be like the super edgy boys.
Yep.
And rather than just being a power metal band, which is fun as fuck, we've all seen them live, and they're cool.
Yeah,
and I anticipate a lot of their releases every year. Bands like Unleash the Archers and stuff like that. Like, they're really fun bands. The problem is Pantera wanted to be the Beatles. Like, they wanted to be the band everybody liked.
Yeah, and that just ultimately caused their downfall.
Yeah, and half of the time, most of the real metalheads just look at them like, yeah, you're all right, I guess.
Yeah, and that's how the fate that you're going to live with.
Yeah, and the funny part is the stuff that they came out with before that is actually really good.
Yeah, that's the sad part, is that they've kind of nullified a good chunk of their good music by doing it.
Because they went mainstream. They tried to go mainstream. And it's just like, no. Like, play the shit you used to play, you motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Like, we like that stuff. Early Pantera is great.
Like, but yeah, it's been interesting. I'm thankful that you got me onto this podcast to talk about this. It's been an awesome 2 hours. Unfortunately, I will have to part ways, so I will see you later, Pope.
Yeah, man. And everybody listening, absolutely go out and check out Heath Nation. He's a great dude. Um, Great gamer, and occasionally does interesting things with music as well.
Yes.
Which we support that on this channel as someone who's just a general purpose asshole, and then covers music and gaming.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
um, and Boosh Walk that's later Pantera.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been awesome, Pope. I'm gonna head out now. But
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for
I've got
having
to
me
go
on your
too
stream.
because I have another show in an hour and a half. Jesus Christ.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
I'll see you later, Pope.
Absolutely, man. Have a good one.
See you later, Pope. See you, chat.
And chat, we've I think covered Pantera in every detail I want to actually cover them in. So, with that all being said, hopefully you'll catch me later tonight for our second better movie review of Full Metal Jacket. And other than that, stay healthy, stay safe. I love you all, and I'll catch you next time.